Today's businesses are on a vigilant watch for threats in an ongoing cyber war. It's time to get real-world solutions to protect and secure your valuable business information anytime, anywhere.
We have David DellaPelle as our guest on the podcast today. David is a visionary with extensive experience in the cybersecurity space. He shared his expertise on platforms such as Security Architecture Podcast and Tech Optimist Podcast. He's discussing both Dune Security and the latest trends and challenges. Here are the links to both of them. I'll put those into the comments later. But a little bit about Dune Security. Dune Security pioneers the world's first AI-powered employee risk management solution. They analyze user behavior, context, and third-party data to tailor cybersecurity measures, transforming vulnerabilities into strengths. Their approach significantly reduces the attack surface space in enterprise globally. David is an expert, and we're going to talk about a number of subjects. One is the future of AI in cybersecurity, the human side of cybersecurity, kind of the role of contextualized security training. We're also going to talk about maybe some insights from Dune Security Innovative Journey. I was talking to him earlier about that. There's a lot to share. And then just some emerging cyber threats and staying ahead and preparing for different things. So, man, just welcome to the show, David. It's so great to have you. Now, did I miss anything on your background?
I think that's great, Josh. I'm excited to be here, and thanks for the time today.
Well, that's great. Now, tell me, how did I touch on Dune Security? User awareness training, what do y'all really hone in on? What's a real use case think of Dune and when this problem arises?
Yeah, I think you got it pretty close, Josh. I'll explain it slightly differently, but I think what you said was almost spot on. So we know that 90% of breaches, Josh, forever start with some sort of user behavior, whether that's business email compromise, social engineering, insider threats. And what we've seen is that the problem is changing, right? We simultaneously have some amazing solutions across cybersecurity layers, right? We have amazing network, identity, email, endpoint security solutions, technical castle walls, as I call them, to prevent breaches, right? It's very hard to break through Zscaler if you're an attacker. It's challenging to deploy malware on an endpoint that's protected by CrowdStrike. But 90% of breaches still start with some sort of user behavior. The problem has gotten much, much worse. We have, obviously, around 3 years ago, we had the advent of the Gen AI phase, right? Kind of that third wave of AI. And the attacks are changing rapidly. At the time, the way that this problem was solved, like phishing is the classic example in an email inbox. The way that the cybersecurity industry dealt with this problem was with security awareness training. Now, security awareness training isn't a security solution. It's a compliance solution masquerading as a security solution. It's a $5 billion market that is a placebo. It doesn't actually do anything. It just makes teams feel better. Now, to make it effective, we work with Fortune 1000 security awareness functions, GRC, and other areas of the CISO org, which I'll explain in a second. To make it effective, they had to do a lot of manual effort. They were quantifying risk with a lot of different data sources and trying to apply security training where it needs to go. So there was marginal risk reduction only with that level of effort. And so what we decided, okay, this is the biggest problem in cybersecurity. It has a fake solution, right? Pioneered by KnowBe4. And everyone knows it. Quarterly phishing test and regular training. Nobody pays attention. We found that 95+% of employees try to actively spend as little time as possible on those training modules. High-risk employees aren't held accountable. Low-risk employees' time is wasted. And then it creates its adversarial relationship between the CISO's org and the end users, right? The CISOs are seen as why is the CISO sending us phishing tests? Why is he doing that? So this is the old world. Now, I'll get into what we do. So Dune Security solves this problem for large enterprises. What we do is we are the user risk company, just like Zscaler or Palo is the network company, right? Or Okta on the identity layer. We are the user layer of cybersecurity. What we do is we pull in unlimited input risk signals and incorporate that into a unified, comprehensive, and accurate risk score for each user. It's an individual risk score from 0 to 100, and it's based on the entirety of data that could impact a user's risk as it pertains to social engineering or insider threat. Now, that could be the most sophisticated two-way conversational social engineering attacks on any channel. Like I could join this call, Josh, as you, deepfaked as you, and talk to you, right? And it would be the AI talking back to you, and it would be almost imperceptible except for to you or me. So we do the most robust testing across any channel, but
So
we're
you do
also
those
pulling in
deep fakes, the deep fake
yes,
videos and all that kind of cool stuff.
voice clone, deepfake, yeah, on video, voice. We're red teaming across encrypted channels as well, right? Dune Security is a key weapon in the fight to save the BPO industry because we are finding users who are complicit in call centers, right? Who might accept a bribe, for example, with our adversary emulation pathways. So we find the risk. We can figure out very quickly who's creating risk in the company, to what extent and how, and segment the population accordingly. Once we have the risk score for each user, we're able to remediate risk individually for each user. Now, for some users, for 25% roughly, the moderate risk people, user adaptive training can work, right? We can train people in real time on what they actually need to learn. If they're just unaware, they need a reminder or something like that. If the users are complicit, ignorant, malicious, dumb, stupid, yes, yes. For those people, maybe they can't be trained. It doesn't matter that our training is the best quality. It's Netflix quality and it's completely customized to our clients. For those people, we have to lock them down. Now, to lock them down and to actually feed, we call it our workflows, our dynamic workflow feature. For us to feed tickets, identity groups, et cetera, with risk, right? Here are the high risk users, and then lock these users down. And for the SecOps teams and the identity teams to take those seriously, our data has to be accurate, our quantification, which it is, right? It's comprehensive and accurate. So that's what we do at Dune. We uniquely quantify user risk, and then we're able to remediate that risk for each individual user. Now, the last piece I'll throw in here today, in today's world, it applies to the human workforce. Just like you can socially engineer a human, you can also socially engineer an agent.
Yeah.
And so our infrastructure is robust, it's modular, it's flexible. It can be used for both the human workforce, but also the AI workforce in the future.
And that's coming. I already know some companies that are onboarding into their HR system agents, just like you would an employee. They have their own ID, they have their own history, they have everything. And I definitely see where that is the future. You're going to have the HR system. These are my human employees and these are my agent machines. And they're getting roles and they're getting tasks just like the humans are. So it's interesting.
That's right.
Now, what do you see in some of the trends here that the attackers? I saw one just recently had an investigation where it was complete social engineering. Not really sure how they got their username and password, but I'm assuming it was on a phishing attack. But they did a CH wire fraud transaction, and they used government PPP loan data as targeting. It saw in the loan data who applied for the PPP loan, and it said what bank was a part of it. And they used that very detailed contact information to call them and said that, hey, a fraudulent transaction is going out for the amount of whatever, $18,132. And they said that we're going to send a code to your phone, and that code I need so we can stop the transaction. Well, the whole time that was to initiate the transaction. The person gave the code and they initiated the transaction and went out the door. And they're much harder to pull back than it used to be. I've been involved with ACH and wire frauds before, and they just nowadays they go so fast. They're just so hard to stop it before it's going out. So even the sophistication of some of the frauds that have nothing to do with hacking or vulnerabilities or malware or anything are quite high. And the risk for companies that don't have a kind of those standards and those controls around it is what you're discovering is really high.
The attack that you just shared was very interesting for a few reasons, because just to get into this, we have a lot of data here in our inside access report we released in August. But the attack that you just described was an urgency or authority-based attack, which our data says is 4 times more effective in breaching or socially engineering people than a reward-based attack, right? Like here's a gift card or something like that. The second thing that was interesting is that what you described was a highly sophisticated multi-channel hybrid attack, right? So there were communications on multiple channels and different ways that they're trying to break in MFA, and they're emailing, whatever, right? They're calling. And if you think about it, that's exactly what an attacker based in some remote corner of the world, right? Typically with some sort of APT, highly sophisticated, maybe state-sponsored group, but more frequently just a script kiddie can use some downloaded, non-guardrailed model, not coming from Silicon Valley, but coming from somewhere else. And they can launch these types of attacks. They can deepfake voice clone the CFO and easily call the accounts payable person, right?
They did that.
Yeah. They can
They
do
didn't
that.
deep fake the voice, but they did call the client. But the deep voice, and it did change the caller ID to the bank that was in question's caller ID. So they came across to that company with the caller ID and said that they were an employee of the bank. And if you did call the bank, that guy exists. But he's like, I have nothing to do with online banking or ACH, and they just picked his name out of the blue. So yeah, it was a fascinating insight. Now, is that something you're seeing as a common use case for your guys, or is it other things as well?
Common use case for us in that, do we do vishing?
Yeah.
Yeah, we just launched our vishing, two-way conversational vishing. It's the best on the market. And 15% of CISOs today are testing, we're self-reported to be testing on vishing as a coverage. But now 60% of CISOs are concerned. But my point is, the attack that you just described, it sounds like someone called someone, right? Like a human called a human. With this new agentic world, you could have the attackers, if the APT group is sophisticated, they could be pulling open source data like YouTube conversations of business leaders and be deepfake voice cloning and automate the calls with AI. They don't have to do it one off. It doesn't have to be spear vishing. It can be to thousands of accounts payable reps across thousands of companies, highly sophisticated and trained on an exact type of attack and method.
Yeah, no, and it's scary. And I think the first report that I saw of a deep fake they deep faked Putin, right, in the border of Ukraine. They had everybody was in the border and they deep faked a video of him saying that they lost the war, give up everybody. And then a lot of people did surrender. I mean, it was Putin who was on the TV. And I thought that was the first real example of a deep fake used in combat for disinformation campaign. But you're seeing more of it is sort of the video capabilities when you had that North Korean IT worker that would work for a company, but he had the deep fake screen where it was not his picture. And it seems to be the wave of the future with remote workers. I had it where they wanted to make sure you were on a camera that couldn't have any kind of deep fake capability. Like you had to be on your phone camera or something. They didn't want your desktop camera.
Yeah,
it was really interesting.
That's not sufficient, right? It's like, it's what the North Korean deepfaked that you mentioned was literally KnowBe4. Hired a North Korean hacker as a no engineer. It's crazy. Anyway, so yeah, if any KnowBe4 customers, I mean, we have a much more sophisticated solution, and next gen security awareness training is not enough. You have to be able to pull in both insider threat and social engineering risk. But on that point, we do our interviews in person now. Like we stopped doing take-home case studies. Candidates are using AI to cheat on the case study, right? So we literally bring people in person and have them, write algorithms on a whiteboard and stuff like that now, and watch them code. And so, yeah, it's crazy. I mean, a quick shout out to a partner of ours, Reality Defender. Gartner just ranked them as the top deepfake detection company, and they have 41 at last time I checked. Shout out to Ben Coleman, who's their CEO. He's fantastic. They have 41 PhD AI researchers building deepfake detection models, and they do a pretty damn good job. So for companies that are trying to eliminate deepfakes in hiring, right, they can use Reality Defender. It's a technical solution.
No, I think that's great. I think deepfakes are definitely the wave of the future. Reality detector, that's an interesting term, especially to have that many PhDs in the same room. The whole room may tip over, but it sounds like a real great group of guys doing some interesting things.
By the way, Reality Defender, not
Reality Defender.
Yeah.
Got it. And then it was this company called Pendrop, I think was their name, where you would call into these ACH lines at the bank and you're doing wire transfers. And they had a hard time. They didn't recognize the voice. They would ask for pins and stuff like that. But this company had this software where it would identify the phone that you were on based on like the noise, the carrier log, like on a cell phone. Now, it used to be when we were younger, you pick up the phone, you hear the tone. You have a carrier tone on there to say that the tone is live and so forth. But they're saying each cell phone has a very unique tone across it. And you can identify that that person's never called in using that phone before, identified it as an Samsung, identified this phone, and so forth. It just goes to seem that deepfakes happening in audio, where you're just calling up, there is no video, is probably happening a lot. Wouldn't you think that was easy, giving some of the help desk attacks where they were resetting people's password? It almost thinks you would have an AI agent just call a bunch of help desk constantly and try different names. But I don't know. Are you seeing deepfake attacks when it comes to, kind of those call centers and so forth?
Absolutely. Yeah. We're defending against that right now. The the vishing. So vishing used to be an attacker trying to break into a company by calling, right? And I could call. It was like, I think Kevin Mitnick was very famous for yeah, and anyway,
winning lotteries or contests on radios.
Right. Mm-hmm. Right. Exactly. And so, that was kind of the old world. But yeah, no, 100%. Now with AI, the AI is so powerful at deepfakes and deepfake voice clones, it's called, that it's way more effective to just put a deepfake voice clone in and have like an automated system call the help desk. Yeah, that's what's happening. That's what we're defending against. That's why we're growing so fast.
That's interesting. So yeah, I've seen several of those attacks. They go right through the help desk. They convince somebody to change a password, send it to the wrong account. It's a lot of that kind of impersonation. And then you have it where I work for a company called DarkSec7, and I started and do incident response. But you can tell when a customer calls, you want to know if that really is the customer. You're really speaking on behalf of them, and because you have a retainer-based system. So it's a lot of times you want to be able to authenticate who these people are that are calling in, and there's not always a good method for doing that for the help desk. Like, is that really Sally that's calling in to get her password changed and so forth? So is that some of the problems you'll help solve, is how to shut that down and how to give that prevention from help desk hijacks?
Yeah, I mean, look, what we do uniquely well for large companies, in the past 8 days, we've closed, I think, 6, I'm losing count, roughly one Fortune 1000 customer per day. Right. Dune Security is arguably one of the fastest growing cybersecurity companies in the world. And we're about to raise a prolific round and all the good stuff. And the team is really buzzing right now here in New York. And quick plug for we need the best engineers across back end, front end, data, AI. Like we cannot hire enough high quality engineers, product people, and salespeople and marketers as well. So
everybody go to your website, Dune Security for careers. All right.
Yep, Dune.security. And we'll be posting a lot more roles in the coming few days here. We just need to look, it's been a hell of a week. So anyway, to answer your question, what we do is we quantify user risk and then we remediate that risk. Now, we can educate people, right? And we have the best way to educate people with our platform. But another use case for the vishing is typically just finding the people who would fall for this type of stuff. We'll find them very quickly. And then those people can either be trained, if they can be trained, or their access can be restricted, or, up to including performance management consequences. I was on with a major financial services institution today, and they have a lot of the companies that did security awareness and like user risk well 5 years ago in the pre-AI age. We're doing if they fail if they click a phishing link twice, they get a talking to. And if they fail it 3 times, they get fired, right? That was like kind of the more effective types of companies. Usually financial services were a little more hardcore with the teeth, and
yeah.
But yeah, that's insufficient because a phishing link it's no longer just a phishing link. But I do want to quickly touch on that, Josh, just the email channel. The email channel is no longer the only channel, right? We have SMS, encrypted channels, phone calls, right? Video calls, etc. It's no longer the only channel, but it is still increasingly important, right? It's still the vast majority of successful attacks. And AI spear phishing is what we found. So we send AI personalized phishing emails automatically. Our business impact understands who this user is. And with very simply, it's a robust small language model we've been building for over 2 years. And it's very powerful. It understands the role-based risk of each user and that user's application to that type of company based on, title, role, department, all these things, right? And so we'll send automatically AI spear phishing where it'll actually send a message individually to each user based on who that user is, right? And so what we found is that drives over 3 times more user interaction than like a templated phishing message. And this is the crazy part. 30% of users who clicked on our AI personalized phishing simulations went as far as to submit MFA credentials, right? They went all the way down that kill chain.
Well, that's so it was really effective in getting the credentials from it.
The depth
Yeah,
of attack is deeper.
like you and I talked about before, I used to work for Cofense. So that was the model,
Oh, yeah.
exactly what you said, is that we sent out mass amounts of email. And we like to say we pioneered there. FishMe pioneered, did a great job of just going after the small market. While Cofense, we concentrated on the larger enterprise customers, and we had offices around the world. They soaked up the small, medium, and just beat us around the punch. And a big difference too is we wouldn't do the FedEx type phishing emails where we were brand infringing and we would make it look like really use FedEx and so forth, where KnowBe4 didn't care. And the lawyers would send them notices, but nobody cared. And they did a great job executing. But like you were saying, some of the companies had the you failed twice and you were fired. It was a very punitive model. What we found out is when you use the punitive model, people were cheating. They would pass around an Outlook rule that would take all phishing emails came from PhishMe because it had a little header, it had a little X header you can key on and made it go to junk. And so they passed that script around to everybody in the entire network. And they did. They set that rule on. Nobody failed a phishing attack because it all just went to junk. Nobody had the opportunity to even see it. So you see, they defeated the program. Why? Because A, they didn't see the value of it. B, you were being punitive for it. It felt like a gotcha moment. And it didn't feel like really we were testing for security, especially since the CIO failed last week and nothing happened to him. And so there's this disparaging on programs in the past. But it says with the AI world, everything is new. Right?
Yeah, you don't have to tell me that security awareness training is broken. I think you said something interesting, punitive. Security awareness training as it existed yesterday was punitive. What
Yeah.
we do at Dune Security for low risk employees, which are roughly 70% of an average employee base. So that's it for a company. We're servicing several companies with hundreds of thousands of employees. So that's a lot of people. It's the vast majority. And so 70% of employees are low risk inherently. And for those people, we can actually dramatically reduce the amount of time that they spend in things like testing and training. Because our genetic algorithm model, it's like a white blood cell that goes to the infection point. Right? The white blood cells aren't flowing to a healthy part of the body. They're just going to the infection point. So yeah, if people are ignorant, if they're careless, malicious, complicit, whatever, we'll find them and we'll deal with the risk and remediate the risk. But for people that are not risky users, why should they have to waste their time? Let them get back to work, make the company money.
No, I get you. I hear you. I do think there's a difference when some of these banks switch technology, but then don't switch the awareness training. So, for instance, in this fraud model I talked to you about earlier, you never give up your codes. You're not supposed to give anybody the MFA codes that come to your phone. However, I'm seeing solutions where they are identifying you and they're going to send a code for the second authentication. It's when they call out. So that is really Josh I'm talking to. And by the way, I'm going to be sending a code in your phone. Tell me what it is. Now I've confused the user big time. So I've told them that never give up your codes. But however, I'm telling you this new process, we're going to use this new technology. And by the way, it does send a text message to your phone. So I think they shoot themselves in the foot. There's some areas of tech you just shouldn't do if it's going to change the complete user interaction that is expected. Because in that ambiguity, when I was at Whitney Bank and we merged with Hancock Bank, we got hit with phishing attacks crazy. It was because we were in the news and they were using the change to drive dissent. So for instance, if you don't click on this link, you will lose access to your online banking and your money as part of this merger. We need you to click on this link so the certificate will work on the new Hancock Bank systems. They use that opportunity to be in the news to target in that. So I think anyone who is considering a merger and acquisition needs to anticipate you're going to get hit as soon as that hits the newspaper, and they're going to look to take advantage of that.
Absolutely.
So it's a brave new world. I'm glad to have people like Dune out there doing something about it because the old model just wasn't working. People were getting frustrated. They would report the phishing emails. You would get some kind of breakdown. But all the time when I was at Cofense, we spent a ton of time with the professional services just weeding out the false positives because you would send a message and the gateway would detonate it to see if it's a phishing email and it would register as being a click. And then you had people swearing up and down. They didn't click on it. They didn't see it. They didn't do anything about it. So it's just been a real interesting problem that's been around for a long time. And it's really hard, like you're saying, how do you change human behavior? It's one thing to say, hey, when you see this, I want you to do X, Y, and Z. But it's just really hard to kind of change that human behavior. And like you were saying, it's not longer the email chain. Everybody thinks phishing is just coming from the email channel now. Now it's on multiple channels they have to deal with. So, yeah.
Yeah, I can run through actually a couple. I started going through some of the data on this, but are you curious to hear some of the different
Yeah.
channel data? So let me run through this. So there's email phishing. 100% of CISOs self-report that they do email phishing testing simulations. And the reason for that likely is probably because they have to get cyber
Regulatory.
insurance. Yeah. 85% of CISOs remain concerned about this channel, and 27% feel confident that the solutions that they have can help. SMS smishing, 27% are simulating SMS attacks, 71% are concerned, 9% are confident. Phishing, 15% can cover simulations, and 60% are concerned. But now there's a couple others. So collaboration tools like informal messaging, Slack, Slack and Microsoft Teams. This one's crazy for me because I think OpenAI is fully based on Slack. All their data is on Slack. What if someone just goes on a Slack on someone else's phone and they have access to Slack? That one's kind of crazy to me, right? Slack is super mobile friendly, right? So collaboration tools are 9% simulate and 32% are concerned. I have a higher level of concern there, but I don't think the market is as concerned. And then encrypted messaging, 0% of CISOs cover simulations across encrypted channels like off channels, WhatsApp, Signal, Viber, but 38% are concerned now, especially after some of the breaches that happened earlier this year.
Yeah, I could see where that is really a challenge, this multi-channel, multi-app type environment that most companies are having to deal with. And just being concerned where they used to be no one considered about the cell phone. It was your own phone. Nobody cared. Now the powerful platform it is, it's a mini computer. It's the same capabilities. It was one thing when I was coming up in the field and BlackBerries. Okay, you read an email all the time. That was about all you could do. Surf the internet a little bit. Now there's almost nothing I can't do on the phone, except really editing Word documents and so forth effectively. But for the most part, this became that whole platform now that everything is going on, whether you have the MFA tokens that you have to do on an adapter app or you send an SMS, everything's coming to that local phone. So it's really interesting. First, it was like BYOD, you could bring your own device. Now it's like, I don't care. We're not going to pay for devices, no corporate devices anymore. It just seems like the risk is migrating a lot. And then the social engineering channels become even greater. While the technology risk may reduce, the human abuse of those seem to be abused even more. Is that a good way to look at it?
I think that's spot on. I saw some data that budgets are increasing. I don't know. We're working with a lot of Fortune 1000 CISOs, and the budgets seem to be pretty static from my perspective. In fact, I'm hearing a lot of, maybe because we work with more traditional businesses, right? Retail, hospitality, machinery, right? Entertainment, financial services, healthcare. But for us, it just seems to be a CISO today is not easy, right? You assume a lot of liability and risk, and you're not really. I think that while the rewards, it's a very challenging, nerve-wracking job. But I think they are kind of superheroes, right? In a lot of ways too. So I think that's pretty cool that they get to fight the bad guys. So that's pretty cool. But yeah.
Well, I do fractional CISO, and I can tell you there's like 3 flavors of a CISO, right? The first one is more that audit type focused person. You came up, maybe they have a business degree or maybe they have an IT degree, but not really technical business audit person. If there's a cyber intrusion, they're calling someone else. They're not leading the middle of an incident. You would not think cybersecurity engineering call the CISO. You just would not that person. Now, the second one is more of an IT manager. This person has a technical degree, was maybe a programmer, a sysadmin or something in the past for a couple of years earlier in their career, moved into a management role, is more of a CIO, IT type person, management. Understands enough that he doesn't have all the resources that are necessary, but almost just uses it as an IT function. Mine is a third. I came from a technical background, incident response, security engineering, pen testing, and so forth. So I come at the management of CISO, the functions, much differently. I would like to focus on the technical controls a lot more in the beginning than maybe something of the audit type controls. So I do think there's a kind of perspective of what a CISO should look for, and which would, when you're coming at me, say, I want to be a CISO, well, what does that really mean? It really means you just want to be at the top of your game. If you want to be at the top of your game, there's several different fields. CISO is not always the one for it, but they're definitely juggling a lot of things, especially with AI and applications and defining things that are new that you never had to define before. That's always challenging. How many CISOs I've talked to, like, I don't know, I'm being pressured to come up with a program for AI, and I have to have policies and acceptable usage, and I have to have technology now to support my AI strategy. And artificial intelligence is no match for natural stupidity, and I have no idea what I'm doing. That seems to be the common thing where IT systems were kind of the same. Yeah, we went to cloud systems in Azure and AWS, but pretty much you understand computing as it went along, where AI just changes everything. The labor model, the people, the process, before it was just the technology was changing, and the people and the process generally was the same. Now you're changing all three at the same time, and people don't know, should I take an AI class? What should I do? If I'd be a master of AI? I mean, it's kind of a
And
confusing
everyone's an
time
AI
period.
engineer. And everyone's an AI engineer now, right?
Everybody's an AI engineer. My degree is computer science. I did C++, Java, and so forth. And I've done some AI vibing. And it ain't the same thing anymore. We used to have to do systems analysis, systems design at Tulane, and it was to extract business level information to be able to code it in Java and some of these languages. Now that kind of dissection between the two isn't necessary. AI can actually translate the business outcomes and necessities and so forth into the code base, and you no longer need that person to try and interpret between the two. That's scary.
100%. I think we're in agreement here, Josh.
Yeah. Well, man, it has been great talking to you. I appreciate hearing everything that's happening with Dune. Where do I find out more about where Dune? I take it your website, dune.com. Is that right?
Dune.security is the website. Yeah. We're growing very fast. We're growing our top line over 4x this year, and we're going to be raising a prolific Series A. And it's clear that we are the technical solution in this space for serious companies. We're not just a better version of KnowBe4. We're a serious risk, quantification and remediation platform. And it's an exciting time, right? Our engineering team is just buzzing, and our sales team. It's really exciting, the use cases and the solutions that we're providing for real serious problems and what I would call the biggest problem in cybersecurity, which has kind of been, it was just ignored, right? The social engineering problem was just people talked about it, we're like, yeah, it's the problem. They just kind of ignored it. Oh, we have KnowBe4. Do you like it? Yeah.
Yeah.
And so anyways, it's exciting to be here, Josh. I'm really excited to be on this with you. And yeah, Dune.security, we're hiring, we're working with the best companies in the world, we're solving problems, we're fighting bad guys. It's a lot of fun.
That's great. I'm glad you're doing all that. And it was great when I was at Cofense. That was a necessary service, but it just wasn't done right. And so just to hear you moving into that more risk management, and it's not just emails that are getting sent out, because that was always just kind of frustrating. And you would see the ones that were the most punitive are the ones that did the best. Like nobody clicked on anything, but nobody clicked on any emails. It was interesting time. But man, it was great meeting you, and hopefully everything goes great with your raise here. It's exciting. We're going to keep track of you. And for everybody else listening, check them out on Dune Security. User awareness training is that big slice that usually is not looked at when people think firewalls and IPSs and everything else. But the one that hits the most, the one that causes the most damage is right in that social engineering side. So appreciate everybody tuning in, hitting that like and subscribe button, and stay secure.